The last play day of week number 1 is upon us. Welcome to Unified Premier League. My name is Chief Cast. My partner in crime, Infernosis, or Scott, will be joining me on the casting booth for, again, this final play day of week number 1. My friend, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling really good and I'm really excited. I unfortunately had to miss Tuesday. Was really excited to cast with John with fellow casts. I know that got to be picked up by somebody a little inferior to be able to pick up that job, but it got the job done. But we're going to be ready for this Overture V Elder game, and we're going to talk about the map bans first and foremost. The map they're going to be heading to. We have a little bit of a screen. We'll jump over to and see what it is. I'm pretty excited because, in my opinion, R6 is kind of made by the map. We see first ban was, in fact, going towards the Overture side, if I remember, if that's their logo. I'm pretty sure that is an altar. Oregon Consulate, Cafe, Chalet, Coastline Clubhouse, all removed, and we're heading to the Tried and True Villa to start things off tonight.
And I have to agree with you. My favorite map. I love Villa. I just love the dynamics. I think every single time Villa comes up, I go down the same rabbit hole saying why this map is awesome. So I don't think I'll bring that up today, but I will say I'm just excited to see what these two rosters can actually bring. If they're going to be prepared for this map, we're going to see new innovative strategies, or maybe this is going to be, one of those like information days where they've maybe grab some, Vons from previous play days, because again, both these teams had great runs and quals, and those Vons are somewhere on the market that somebody could pick up, create those strategies and counter strats.
Yeah, I'm really looking to seeing what we're going to have go through. Obviously, Thatchers don't really get banned out that often anymore in Villa, kind of taking a step back. It's a little bit more discreet when it comes to trying to break through some of these hard walls. Hunting vault walls are one that's really important to try and bust into when you're trying to defend aviation in games, or planes in games, as some people like to call it. Hard wall for master bedroom leading over to statuary. That's a pretty important one as well. And I'm more interested to see how the tertiary objective choice on, kitchen and dining is going to be breached. Some teams prefer to go in through and try to take laundry and have to be wary of that master bedroom hatch. And some people just like to bust in through supply closet window and wall and just try to swing into the objective really quickly through kitchen. It's really up to the teams individually, but there's so much room for variation and so much tactical difference that could be made that it's going to be such an interesting play style to see.
Oh, Scott, you just brought up the wormhole of everything I love about Villa. So you want to talk more about that tertiary objective. I actually thought that was a word that you were allergic to in your vocabulary. So, Scott, that's,
No, that's
really
quaternary.
impressive that... Oh, that's true. Well, you don't like quaternary. I'm glad that you could count to 4, though. Very, very nice of you. But you're talking about, right, that third objective, which is going to be the kitchen side. But it's one of the many reasons why Villa has been, the innovative map, because you're talking about the traditional ways of taking it, right? You either go Russian through laundry, through pantry, you do the traditional clear, the methodical clear, remove all the ceilings over in master side. But teams are now pushing in through library for one simple reason. If the entire defending roster is looking sky high with nitrocells, pulses, Valkyries, Maestros, Echoes, whatever is grabbing information, well, you can say, I respect your information, defenders, and just go around it, pushing from an avenue that they're not prepared for. That's why teams like Depth, which unfortunately just disbanded, were strong on that tertiary objective, because they're prepared for both styles of execute. So again, we're alluding to how these teams should VOD review, go back to qualifiers, and break down how their opponents are playing. That's why you do it, to determine what defense they're going to be bringing out. Because if you see that they're expanding all into library with a bunch of reinforcements and pre-made head-level murder holes, maybe you ignore library altogether and push in through master. But if you see it's a combination of both of them, maybe you rush.
Yeah, I think that's always been a bit of a scenario to think about. I mean, that tertiary objective, I've always said it's one of my favorites still in R6 because it's so reminiscent of one of the classic objective styles. Pulses, Frosts even get played, castles get brought through every occasionally, and it's just a lot of classical operator lineups you see and a lot of nitro cells as well to help assist that pulse. It's so reminiscent of old style, which is just, has a nasty place in my heart that I'll always hate and love at the same exact time. So, it brings me back to the old, but teams also just have to remember how you beat that. And one of the big ways to beat that people weren't really anticipating for a large period of time was a straight sprint into the objective, not giving them time to actually use that cardiac sensor. So sledge through a castle barricade or through a floor, rush in and take the entire map by storm. That's exactly what we're probably going to see in most tertiary objective choices. Could see the slow long con, but I think any of these teams at this level here in Unified are going to just be waiting and ready with nitro cells in hand to just throw it out back at him.
Well, a curveball already pitched, and Zofia is going to be the primary ban. She's been an operator that's been receiving a lot of love lately because of the recent changes to Ashe. She lost one of her Ashe charges, as well as some increased recoil to her R4C. And now Zofia has become that primary entry. She's also the best when it comes to dealing with utility because she's the only soft destructor that can burn her own ADS as well as destroy utility. So with her off the board, it's going to put a lot more emphasis on Flores, Iana, and Ashe.
Yeah, we do see Goyo being taken off. That's going to get those Vulcan shields. It's going to be interesting to see where those could have been placed, but now can no longer be placed. We'll have to supplement that. They can't bring a ton of shields to have that extra bit of support, and they're not going to have the information either. Valkyrie's a very go-to band for this map. It's wide. You've got a lot of information that needs to be gathered, and no one's going to leave those cameras up to gather that, even if they want to be a little bit stealthy. The Thatcher band, I'm not exactly keen on. I mentioned at the beginning, you see less and less of that when it comes to Villa. It's just not as an important of a factor, and seeing that that gets banned means one of these squads, this Alter squad, is still scared of the hard-breaching potential of Overture. They don't want to have to try and play against that. They don't want to do, what's the term, bandit tricking. They don't want to mute trick. They don't want to do any of those strategies and risk a nade over the top or something along those sorts because Iana is having such a massive presence. Flores is coming through as well. There's Rotero drones. Sledges are just absolutely spectacular on every map nowadays. The nades and explosive ordinances that an attacking team can bring to the table makes it nigh impossible for them to actually put down that utility and attempt to trick with it.
So back in the day, this is not textbook utility consumption simulator, but it was kind of like when teams are starting to realize ADS and deployable shields have this crazy combination. We'd see teams on Attack Villa go against these ADSs, and when my pancakes, or when my wasn't even in the game yet, just these ADSs and deployable shields, and teams really didn't quite have the understanding of how to ADS burn. So what we would see from Thatcher was he would go onto the roof, ADS or EMP from the roof, turn off the ADSs and destroy shields with, an Ashe swinging on through. So there was a time where Thatcher was probably the best operator on this map because you didn't have to do any mini games with him. You didn't have to coordinate a util burn because you just turned the gadgetry off. And this is like 2 years ago in Rainbow Six Siege. So he didn't even turn off gadgets at the time. He just outright destroyed them. So I want to see a day where Thatcher makes it in through a ban wave and then just Thanos snapped all of the gadgetry off. Well, Scott, you're talking about a rush, and so far it's starting maybe a little bit slower than a traditional rush, but players already working their way into the basement. Hawks is going to nitro cell his teammates, and Amp stuck on the other side of the pantry wall. He's going to have to call in from some additional reinforcements to open up that green barricade. In that process, though, Overture finds 2 kills, and that swift initial execute has started to stall out until Needles gets his pick. Tied up 3-3, and we haven't even seen 40 seconds of the round.
That's exactly what's happened now. Alter, who had a lot of their players sitting off-site and trying to play against the normal grain of defending this objective, it seemed to work out for them initially as they lost 2 very quickly on top. Had to make a little bit of a step back, were able to cut off some of the Alter players that were trying to step inwards really quickly, and now they just need to play their own game. Unfortunately, they only have Sinnoh's Nitro still to work with, and I would be very wary if I was Hawks to bring out that cardiac sensor, but it looks to be that Alter says we lost the chance for the rush, we lost that prime opportunity. Let's go up to the second floor. Let's stop busting some holes in the floorboards. We still have a sledge, we still have 4 nades, and we have Rotero drones to drop through hatch into laundry room that we can work with to just completely decimate with those explosive ordinances that I stressed earlier. You have to use these utilities, and they need to find success because Overture was doing the same thing. It's an explosive playstyle for both squads, and unfortunately, Overture's explosive playstyle was a little bit too team-oriented at the very beginning. Didn't really work out for them, but Alter still has all but one of their nades as Amp has tossed one and used it. With only 1 minute and 10 seconds left in this round, there's still plenty of time for this sledge player of JB to open up the floorboards, do an open floor planning for this, and just make it impossible for Overture to sit on site.
Hawks tracking 1. No nitro cell to be seen other than Sino, who pre-places it. Coordination with the yellow pings are going to say, hey, if the nitro cell is here, Hawks, you just tell me when somebody walks over it. It's going to be like a living landmine. Amp is in that area, but Hawks is not going to call for that explosive device yet. Still, Alter removing as much of that ceiling as possible, trying to find picks on the two players over by the Memo side. JB is going to be the one spearheading that on that sledge. The Metal Raptor is being quite a bane here for both of these teams. Blade will now find one, but we're in the dire minutes of this execution. Only 30 seconds left, and still plenty of Syria gates alive. You're going to have to start to expend also crucial utility. Sino looking the wrong direction, and once again, both these rosters tied up. A soft cook grenade is not going to go into the gate. Blades down but not out, and a good cross coverage now from Alter, trying to all find Hawks. Swinging out from one, attempting the gunfight, dishing out some damage, but not enough to actually deny the plant as well as that coverage. Now moving into the post plan, still a position known, and Amp able to address that issue. Overture Academy, a roller coaster round, but ends up forfeiting in the dying seconds of the round.
That's extremely unfortunate. I mean, UMP is one of my favorite weapons in the game. I mean, it's one of your favorite weapons in any game. Modern Warfare 2 gamers out there, you know what I'm talking about. It's just a classic, but it doesn't do much damage. It's pretty loud when it's actually going off and firing, a slow fire rate, and unfortunately, Hawks was not able to get the shots on target fast enough. And Alter will be able to take round one after a very shaky start from Overture and their very close comeback to make it tied at that 3-3 for the majority of the round, despite the first 40 seconds going both directions pretty sporadically. But round two will have to go. We're no longer seeing what I considered the tertiary objective, but obviously they kind of favor it picking it first, but aviation in games, the planes in games room. This is the classic, your go-to starting map in most scenarios. You need to make sure Hunting Vault is pretty secured. You usually see a Maestro if that does get picked. We do not see that come through. We do see a Mute though, and that means that they're probably Mute Jammer out that Hunting Vault wall. Mute Jammer out wall connecting towards Study and make it impossible for Alter on the outside with maybe a Habana, maybe a long-range Ace to actually throw some of those Selmas off, which we do see Teddy on the Ace, to throw those Selmas long distance from that outside Raptors and actually get that wall opened up to spot some players in vaults. And that's really important for these long shot angles that want to be held, or even seeing a Twitch being played by Baxley. They want to play this one a lot slower. They still have 4 nades. They still have a ton of utility. We're bringing in Ash, and it's very important to remember that Sophia's been taken out. That's not allowed to be played, which means where you typically see a Yana taking up the role of Ash as it has been, it's going to be the Ash taking up the role of Sophia. So turning the current meta on its head, an interesting decision for Overture. I think a smart one, considering they don't have to start off on the attack first. They have to let Alter struggle like that for the first 6 rounds.
Something interesting that took place in round one was the rotation that Alter made, right? They had that aggressive rush, and then they decided, all right, we're going to tone things down a little bit and do a traditional execute. That's a great learning point for Overture. Why is it good for the defense? Because they know if the attackers go for a certain style of execute, they're willing to change it. They're not fully committed. Sometimes we see amateur rosters, the IGL says, hey, we're rushing, and then when the rush fails, the team is still just pushing on forward because I kind of get like red mist activated. They go tunnel vision mode and they only are focused on one objective, pushing on forward. Alter had great discipline for the entire team. Overture should be able to digest that information and be prepared for whatever the attackers throw. A real-world example is what's taking place here in round two. We're going to see Alter clearing in for the north side of the map, and at some point, they should make a rotation. If Overture is cunning enough, they might be able to pre-prep a window over by Study or even the Study balcony door and play aggressive when one of the members of Alter repels up to that balcony.
We do see Needles has taken control of 90 Classical Hall to most of a degree. Still needs to get the actual hall itself, and of course there is a player laying in wait behind that shield. They can use one of those Ash rounds to try and clear out. They still have got 2, but you can hear that ADS whirring in the background. It's going to be a massive difficulty for them. Alter will have to think about what they need to expend to get that one going, but a fight down below towards Library side. Baxley's lying in wait with the F2. A shot tries to connect, but it does not manage to do anything. So that's 2 players now for this Alter side that have taken damage in altercations early on, and Overture are still sitting 100% all across the board and waiting for a single mistake to be made, and Shaka capitalizes in the first. Amp will be felled with a Mark 14 EBR. Overture now with the 1-man advantage with 45 seconds remaining. They can lie in wait, and we do see exactly that with Sinnoh down below. Shaka's waiting as well. Finds the next, a double for him as Baxley is felled. Forrest Needles is still waiting behind this piano room, knows there's one player just so close, but yet so far. Sinnoh is rotating in the other direction. So much for Alter has fizzled out towards this end because they've lost too much of their fighting power trying to actually make the rotation to fight in the other direction. Chief, I'm sorry to say it, but if Alter doesn't change absolutely everything, they're not going to make it. Hawks finds JB, Teddy down inside Vault from Blade with a shotgun, and Sinnoh takes out Needles. A flawless round and a very lackluster performance from Alter in this round 2 attempt.
Alter never really established map control beyond the halfway mark of Villa. What that means is they did a great job of droning out Master Bedroom into Stat, into Deer, and as soon as they had that corridor into 90 over by Lamp, Red Landing, and 90 itself, they start to go away from their strategies. They start to put some of their troops downstairs to clear out Living Room and Library, but the solo play from Bannox pushing in through Library by himself. There was an initial drone maybe about 20 seconds beforehand, but everything else that he was doing down there was off just game sense and reaction time. And sorry to say, when there's a defender there lurking in corners, you can be one of the best players in the world. It's going to be very difficult to win that gunfight. As soon as Overture realized that there's a solo roam downstairs, a free kill for them. When you couple that with another player over by Art, able to get a duel as well, it forced Needles away from the push, down into Art to take those gunfights. When Needles was on that first floor trying to actively hunt with 30 seconds left in that round, I mean, that's practically an impossible endeavor, especially when Overture had already recalled their troops upstairs. JB was holding the flank into Study. He was able to dish out some damage, but not actually find the kill on the Sinnoh, and that just put, Alter in a terrible position. It was a 2v2 on site going for the plant with one downstairs in Art, and it was just a full send to the bomb site, try to make as much chaos as possible, win some ones along the way. They weren't able to quite do that, but we've seen some brilliant attacks out of Alter in the first round, being able to make rotations in the midpoint of that round, so they're just going to have to go back to their strengths from the previous round.
And it's not that Alter was slow in terms of clearing the second floor towards this Master Bedroom side. No, they were exceptionally quick. That was one of the most perfect Yana Gemini replicator drones I've ever had the pleasure of witnessing. It did not get shot out despite shots going towards it. Completely cleared Master Bedroom, Astronomy, Statuary, and Trophy goes back around to Bathroom as well and made sure no one was sitting,
abomination?
lying in wait. It's an alibi is what it is now because she got buffed.
Carbine iron sights.
Wait, he's bringing in iron sights and a 416?
Yes.
Oh,
He's bringing iron sights and a 416.
To be fair, you brought up Mark 14 on Aruni when you can bring the when you can bring a faster firing
That's
SMG.
A glimpse moment from GCU, dude. He'll run the Scorpion Evo suppressor iron sights and absolutely slaughter. So, I guess iron sights is the new meta these days, right? We went from like information analysis simulator to utility consumption simulator to there it is. There's the abomination. Oh no,
my goodness!
I might vomit, Scott. I don't know if I can cast
this is their new method. They're thinking
screen.
If you run the iron sights of the 416C, maybe Ubisoft will stop nerfing it. Maybe they'll stop pushing updates out for it. They just hope and pray that's like, hey, if we make it look really bad, but it's not really bad, then it'll work out just fine. But I mean, that's nasty by all accounts.
Nasty angle from Needles looking up and through Deer. If a member of Overture overly peeks on, they might find themselves dead. There is somebody playing there. That's Sino on that angle, but he is not going to take that gunfight as of now. Alter, well, they have the man disadvantage after losing an early gunfight about at the 60-second mark, and all their attacking force is still lurking on that first floor, trying to apply some vertical pressure, but they're going to have to start to move on forward. Starting to deal with these deployable shields going to be absolutely critical. And JB just walks on by, reeling it unemptied. Nobody's occupying. He finds a second. Where's Overture in this round? They were knocked dead and silent, and now Alter has the man advantage going in through the execution component.
This is a bad position. Vam narrowly escapes with his life as JP almost found yet another, almost making it the full 3K, but Shaka is felled by Needles on the opposing side. All of them falling in the last second as Needles cleans up their own second as they stepped in from Astronomy and then some extra level of assistance from a long shot angle. I mean, everything, no joke, just completely fell apart for Overture in the last few seconds. They weren't watching crossfires when one gets felled over inside of Trophy. Statuary is not ready to hear that information and turn to be wary, and that is what befell them. Or should I specify, it's JB who is the one who felled them. They just outplayed and outmaneuvered them, and Alter Esports make a completely opposite performance than what we saw in round 2, where we saw them fail on that Planes and Games objective in a pretty dominant fashion, where Overture just turned around each and every corner and slapped them silly. Alter did it right back in the next one, and now going back to where we saw round 1, this tertiary, or usually a tertiary objective choice of Kitchen and Dining, where we saw round 1, Alter Esports step up, quick rush, lose 3, but get 3, actually technically get 2, and still managed to come out in the end because of an unfortunate happenstance with the UMP kind of being dog water.
I'm just perplexed by what we saw transpire in round number 2, or round number 3, right? It was crazy. 416 Ironside, JB just pushing randomly and taking gunfights, a 3-man kill feed for Alter. We've seen how lethal they can be in so many of these rounds, their ability just to hit a flick, or flick a flitch. What am I saying these
You got
days?
this. I believe in you.
Hit a switch. Words are hard today, Scott, man. Like, I don't know what's going on. I still
pull the dentures out, put them
tongue.
back in, put some denture gun back on them, try and like
Bro,
reset
dude,
them.
If I was wearing dentures, I wouldn't have a cut underneath my tongue, so maybe I do need to invest in some dentures, man. Oh my god, don't cut your tongue, guys. Don't bite your tongue, don't do anything stupid, and you can actually talk like a normal human being, man. Having a cut under my tongue for the past, like, 10 days so has been the most miserable experience of my life, but you know, I think Overture had a miserable experience in the previous round. They just looked like they weren't having fun when Alter was able just to absolutely bully them. But so far, both these rosters having quite impactful rounds. We just see this back and forth between these two teams. And, you know, Overture had some nice jabs in the previous round, right? Round 2, that flawless round, was incredible by them. And we're also alluding to, Scott, at the start of this series, how rosters can elect for different styles of attacks here on the tertiary bomb site. And so far, that's transpiring as Alter is pushing in through Library.
It's interesting to see a piano push from Needles as well, where we saw in round 2 where Alter completely avoided stepping in from the southern side of the map, went towards the north, did attempt a master bedroom and rotated too slow, and that's where Overture caught them off guard and proceeded to slap them around a little bit too much for them to face off against. They're doing the kind of opposite. They're actually taking a multi-level approach, a multi-oriented approach, and while you would think it would work out for them because it's something new, it doesn't happen off the start. Sinnoh comes out with that Roni and finds the first kill onto Teddy, and a second one falls as JB peeks that skylight, and a nasty shot from Sinnoh completely devastates his forehead. And that's going to be a none head. There's no numbers left inside of his HP, or no forehead left at all. So Shaka still patrolling on this landing side, waiting and just for absolutely, I guess, no one at the current moment, because this Alter side are just slow, just want to play their own game. They're scared, and I do not blame them. They've lost 2 very dominant players. JB's got 4. Teddy's been doing a really good job with the utility, hasn't necessarily been getting the kills, but is still an impactful player for this squad. But Overture's just finding kills. Needle steps out, finds Shaka, who stepped away from landing to watch the staircase, but Sinnoh's there, getting their 3K to their name, and just needs to find the last 2 of Baxley and Amp to clean up. It will not happen because Amp is there instead. Sinnoh out for the count, but still a 3v2.
The lurking pressure from Alter may have cost them some opening duels in the previous part of this round, the early part of this round, but it's starting to make this a little bit more doable. Amp is going to be the spearhead as well as Backside. Coming in from China, able to get one. Amp gets a refrag, now down to a 1v1. 30 seconds left in the clock. Amp has the diffuser in hand. He's being spotted by an eye, one of those bulletproof cameras. Full information for Overture, and now Amp forced to go for the plant. He was stuck in one of those Malusi Womp-Womps, but Hawk has the information still. Coming off of his wall hack gadget, and a swing into China for him. He makes it look easy, finding the kill into Amp. That's going to be a free defuse for him.
This is an absolute slugfest. I think the term that a lot of the kids these days like to use is barn burner. I mean, back and forth action, a lot of gunfights going in either direction, and where we saw a very, very, I guess, phenomenal comeback from Alter, where they fell 2 at the very beginning and were in dire straits, managed to make that comeback and actually get the lunchbox down. Overture say, no, we're going to go ahead and clean up where we need to. We're not letting a repeat of round 1 go through, and we will actually clutch up and put our money where our mouth is. So round 5, 2 rounds left in this half. We could see it go for that 3-3 split. Well, we could see that 4-2, leaving one side, I guess, wondering what they have to do in the second half to try and make themselves the victor. But in my honest opinion, as we head over to Plains and Games, Alter was so weak on this objective in round 2 that they're going to have to change everything. I commented that at the end of that round. They'll have to change absolutely everything if they want to find success. They can't rotate so slow. They were so swift and near perfect execute of Gemini Replicate droning and taking full control of that master bedroom side and clearing with no chance of a flanker or a person lying in wait to ambush. But yet they were still too slow, and they took a more dangerous route to actually get control of both the south and the north to do that double split attack.
We'll have to see if Overture is now going to have their middle name be changed to Danger, or is it Alter addressing all those issues? You know, you mentioned how they failed at pushing in through the library side of the map. Maybe you don't do a textbook North Clear, because Alter Esports, their North Clear was phenomenal. It was impeccable. It was the control of the south side of the map that forced them to suffer, forced them to lose that roster count, and eventually be a flawless victory against them by Overture Gaming. So now if you do a pure south linear execute, you can push from that first floor, you can push that second floor simultaneously and clear out all those lurkers. So far, Alter is going to do that exact style of play, clearing in through Art, followed by pushing in through the northern parts of the map, clearing all those nooks and crannies, as well as addressing one of the most common angles, the U-bar murder hole looking over towards the main entrance. So far, Overture not playing that angle. While they did create it, nobody's there at least of now.
I like what I'm seeing from Overture. Maybe not this pick right here for this operator, but I like what I'm seeing in terms of taking off angles, not just picking up the normal go-to murder hole and, not sitting in a normal go-to spot for a stairwell either, because you saw they get pre-fired twice already. Alter would have had that player. I have no doubt that they would have won that engagement if it came down to it. And Overture's really spicing things up in their own accord. I said Alter needed to change everything, and they've done that. They've managed not to lose a person at this point in time, 1 minute and 50 seconds left, so still plenty of wiggle room for them to make mistakes and flutter out like we saw before, but I'm actually rooting for them at this point in time. Overture are playing really slow. They also picked an operator that I say has no, reason to be in the game, so a little dogging on that. That may be a reason why I'm now rooting for Alter, but Alter will take the first pick, which is a pretty pivotal one. Needles finds Shaka was attending that very long and convoluted flank on this first floor. The first pick to Alter, but they still need to get 4 more if they want any chance of taking this round, and they're going to start off a little less than pretty as Blade finds JB from above.
Look at how many holes are over on that A floor, the A bomb site floor. Blade was able to use that perfectly against Alter. Now both rosters, they have the same exact count, 4 apiece, but they still need to deal with a clash. That mini game could be in both teams' favors, because Hawks, well, he doesn't have quite the best gunfight ability, but he can delay time and be quite a thorn in the side of Alter. Both these rosters, once again, take gunfights but equal trades between them, forcing Hawks away temporarily. He still has ADS coverage as well as potential swing in from U-Bar. Needle's going to have to call for some additional reinforcements, and that's going to be pressure from Study as well as from Lamp.
Yeah, with no breaching round still available, no way to really clear that shield, though it's not a necessity at this point in time. It's not a shield that can be shot out. It's not, fortunately for them, a Vulcan shield, but Needles does lay down, finds Blade from below in a very cheeky shot angle. Amps behind Vault Door has an opportunity to get a good position, but Needles has been felled by Hawks in a bit of a trade-off. They're down in the process, and Baxley is able to clean up Sinnoh from behind Bar. Look at that angle for attempting to see anything, and yet still sprays through the opposing wall. Round 6 now ready to go, and Alter was able to make up for the absolutely poor performance in round 2 with a pretty spectacular one, despite Overture playing what I would call weird gameplay. By all accounts, very strange. Something that is not seen very often, but that was what we said at the very beginning here, Chief. We said Villa's a map that can be so consistent, but yet so far apart in terms of strategies, whether it be that tertiary objective of just sprinting in or playing the low, long con. We're seeing that on every single objective, and it's interesting to see how these two teams are attempting to play the mind game, the long con themselves, both on attack and defense, to figure out what's going to work against this specific team.
It was a Rooney that really cost Overture the round. And that doesn't sound right. Rooney was the first pick, and they were the primary roamer. But the reason why Rooney really hurt Overture was the fact that Aruni was prepared for the exact same execute that took place in the round 2. Aruni was playing over to the north side of the map, over by the astronomy stairs. And their job was to snipe drones, take gunfights, and waste time on the north side of the map. However, Alter wasn't anywhere near the north side of the map. They were pushing directly in through art, pushing into piano, and eventually into library. As soon as Overture realized what was taking place, it was absolutely imperative that Aruni makes a decision. Do they go for a flank? Do they try to retake library, or do you just end up giving it up? Unfortunately, Overture elected to think on, their hands for a very long time before, hey, we're going to have a slow flank come in. This allowed Alter to set up a flank drone in Mud, and as soon as that drone was being launched by somebody on Alter said, hey, the flank's coming on, you guys dealing with vertical pressure, I need you guys off those angles right now and to deal with the roamer. As soon as that roamer was addressed, Overture wasted no time on the roam, they lost their roamer, and it exposed the entire bomb site. It allowed Alter to remove that soft floor, take damage against some of those defenders who are using the pre-made murder holes, attempting to get gunfights. It didn't work out for them, and then the entire strategy from Overture just started to fall on top of each other.
The offside presence, the roam that we've been seeing attempted from Shaka, yes, it got absolutely shut down in that last round. That was probably the most pivotal push. To no fault, yes.
It was
a very good play,
not making the decision fast enough.
It was a phenomenal play, a great call from all to be able to turn and get that kill. But we have to see Shaka find that same level of impact they found a few rounds prior, where that roam actually does make and find a kill, at least one, a trade at the very least, because when they're able to do that, when Overture is able to get those opening picks and actually shut down Alter's assault, it really works out for them. And Needles will no longer be able to work out as their body flops onto the floor like me after leg day, as that nitro cell from Sinnoh absolutely dismantles any chance of that Ash breaching round finding impact. JB just waiting for a Rotaro drone to go down. Could be an opportunity for them to clear out shield inside of this classical hall. 90 has been cleared by the Gemini replicator. They do have nades to toss as well. They have opted to bring out the Nomad to have a couple of those air jabs to maybe help assist. They can play those aggressively, and they've already expended all of them. And now they have to expend these ADSs by tossing these flash grenades and hoping that Vim will have to be forced to step away, and that'll give them time to clear the shield. But all in all, Amp sitting at 20 HP. This is a bad start, and there's only 55 seconds remaining.
We're going to have to see Alter make, a decision in this round. How do they want to push? A Nitrocell has been used. It found perfect contact early on. The lurking pressure from Sinnoh on the bottom floor won't quite have that explosive desire a second time in this round, but a shotgun in a default spot still could have exactly what the doctor ordered. Alter knocking on the doors of the bomb site, prepared to go for an execute. They have confirmed Sinnoh playing underneath, forced to go for a rotation. Knife kill from Teddy on the main stairs, now tying up this round, but you have to go for the execute. You don't have a lot of time left. Coverage being made over into the gun vault side, allowing the default plant to be a possible contingency in this round, with impacts grenades going out. Overture starting to fall. Incredible kills by JV as well as from Bax. It's now the roamer underneath. How did this round go to this? How is the bomb being placed? Where is Sinnoh? Nowhere to be seen over in the Zulu sign. Backside is going to confirm the diffuser. Now it's a 1v3 post plant, and Overture is going to have a miracle in this round to be successful here.
Why was Sinnoh still sitting below in piano? Teddy finding the last kill, and that does put the final nail in the coffin for Alter. They're going to take this one in a round that shouldn't have gone in their favor. Like you said, it was just out of nowhere. And I think it's because they still had Sinnoh sitting down below in piano. Yes, that's a great way to stop default plant from below. But let's not forget, Sinnoh popped their nitro early. It did find a kill into Needles, but you don't have that nitro to toss to stop the plant in that position and to stop that entry through that doorway from landing. And because of that, we see Alter just step into sight completely uncontested, spray a couple angles. Yes, they lost somebody to a pokeball that made it a little interesting, a little pizzazz onto the play itself, but you can't give away your position that way, especially when they know you're the one who's expended that nitro cell. They're no longer fear you. They can step in as much as they want, because that underfloor position that you would play, that somebody should be playing with an explosive ordnance, is just mute. They don't care about you. You mean nothing, and that's exactly how that round ended. They stepped up, they found the kills they needed on site, and Sinnoh, who was too little too late to step back, was ultimately felled in that last 3v1.
It was the exact same problem that Round 5 had for Overture Gaming's defense. The roamers weren't recalled to the bomb site soon enough. Somebody on Overture, whether or not it's IGL or somebody in the roster says, hey, our bomb site's kind of exposed. Your lurk downstairs won't have the impact that we need, and what we do need is you on the bomb site gun up. That call was made. Well, it should have been made twice. It never was made by Overture, and it ends up costing them the round 2 times in a row. Very frustrating to see take place, but I guess there's some silver lining for them. You know, whatever they did on defense, it doesn't matter anymore because they're now prepared for their attacking execute. It's their attacking stint. They have 6 rounds to bring it back and deliver us into overtime. And so far, Scott, here in week number 1, there hasn't been a single series that have finished with a 2-round or 2+ round scoreline. So everything has been 7-5 or something along those lines, or entering into overtime. An incredible drone over by Green Big Ben, allowing Overture to get some information on the offsite pressure, but they're not actually able to get that kill. Instead, they're going to misplay it.
Oh, frag for frag, though. That was an interesting play. The very swift rotation we saw from Baxley to find the kill into Shaka, but immediately refragged back with some great assistance by the initial crossfire that should have been set up before we saw Shaka even step inside. Shaka should have waited another 15 seconds for that rotation to come through. Don't get greedy with it, and ultimately you'll lose a life because of it. Sinnoh also loses their life as Amp finds one. Now a second and a blade refragged back by Vim. It seems to be Trade City for both sides, but Overture's getting the butt end of it. They lost the first, and saved narrowly as Vim does find themselves a third, but from up above, Needles on the staircase finds him. This is just back and forth action. I want to say it again, a barn burner of a round here in round 7. Hawks is left as the last person standing, has to think about where they want to enter, has teased toward front entrance, will actually step back to go towards it. Needles has that audio cue, hears the running in the footsteps. They know that they were initially on this western side because they did hear the Selmas going off. Here from below as well, as one just gets tossed into the floorboards. Hawks making the long con rotate over towards Astronomy, going to step up this elbow staircase, and now has a lot of room they have to work with. They have to clear the entirety of the second floor leading over to the side, but the last 2 players, Teddy and Needles, their operators are typically anchor lineup operators, so more than likely, they really will have to clear sight. Hawks can absolutely make this comeback.
One drone to be seen from Hawks is the only thing you can do to gather information. That drone is going to be lost relatively soon, confirming one of the SMG-11 pros is isolated over by maps. But beyond that, he won't be able to gather any more information this round. All he has to do is just face peek corners and take gunfights. If he sees somebody, you have to go for the shots. Teddy's looking the wrong way. He's lost in the sauce this round, but Hawks is still not quite out of the driving seat. He has to deal with these mirror windows. Recently nerfed, you can walk up to them and now melee them, so part of the avenue for gathering information for Overture has been removed. But Needles, he hears the audio cue pushing his way through books, and it's gonna be a free kill for him. A valiant effort for the attacking roster of Overture, but they weren't quite able to secure the deal.
Very unfortunate, absolutely great attempt there by Hawks. Full account to them finding the first, denying the mirror window. Great rotations throughout. I've never seen one player run around the map 4 times in the same round. It's very interesting to see that they're playing more cross-country and less a little bit of R6, but we did see a lot of that really nice R6 talent come through as well, them finding first pick, removing those really recently nerfed mirror windows that a lot of people think are just not that good anymore because of that. I still think very competitively viable, and a lot of teams are still sleeping on how good those black mirrors can really be, and we did see that. It gathers information. Yes, it can be meleeed out, but if you just don't let them walk into study to melee it, then it's never going to really be a problem. But it ultimately almost was a problem for this altar site. They narrowly defended that. Overture and frag for frag. Shaka being the first to fell. A great kill by Baxley, then immediately refragged with some extra assistance by, I believe, Vim at the time. It was a really good round of constant action, and now we're going to have to see how this tertiary objective choice, which I'm saying that even though it's not the tertiary objective, because it seems to be, at least for Overture's defensive side, they favored Planes and Games and Kitchen and Dining, and so Statuary and Trophy was their tertiary objective, but Alter does actually like to pick up this statuary and trophy room, and I'm very interested to see how they're going to defend this. Take a look at their defensive lineup. JB's picked up the Frost. This is a very interesting choice on a map like Villa with a lot of vaulting windows you can go through Pantry. We did see a Frost mat placed down there. Bax still on this Mozzie. Found a very nice shot and good success on a shotgun very early on, and that's going to be another necessity because this Buck Skeleton Key can play from below, clear out floor into trophy and statuary, and can make it very difficult for this Alter esports side to actually sit still and defend themselves on this objective.
You can have all the bucks you want in the world. If those K-Claws are elevated on the top rafters portion, those wooden beams of Villa, good luck ever destroying it. Unless you get, like, some Hail Mary frag grenade where it just, like, bounces perfectly and shrapnelizes that K-Claw, you're never going to be able to actually remove that util. So they might just assume, oh, it's going to be a flat push. You just buck from underneath. Boom. That util on the wall is going to be gone. It's going to be a lot more difficult to do that. But Overture is actually pushing a little bit more differently. They're going to be pushing in from the south, trying to flood on their way forward in towards the north. And so far, Overture hasn't found any members of Alter. The reason for that is Alter's playing on the first floor. Pretty much isolated over the kitchen side, going for a Nitrocell denial, and a denial of that first floor, so the Buck Skeleton Key meta that we were just highlighting won't actually quite have the impact. We're going to see a Gon 6 go off. It hits the wall, and actually, it might have destroyed one of the K-Claws. Incredible, but no, the K-Claw is still there. JB forced away temporarily from a fragmentation grenade, but he's going to still stand at full HP and still peeking over by the lamp door frame.
Yeah, you are not able to get the Electro Claws. Your 2 nades that Sinnoh brought have been expended, and now that Master Veggie wall is basically useless. I mean, you cannot breach in through there. There's really no way to contend against it. Maybe, yes, Shaka can play from below and clear out the floorboards. It doesn't give you the sightline really to clear out the Electric Claw like you spoke about, but it still does make it difficult for Alter to actually hold the site, which may give them time to keep one angle and actually breach. And yes, the southern wall did get breached away with the Electro Claw, but unfortunately, Hawks, who was trying to have some assistance in terms of defeating that, will be felled first. So the first frag goes. A minute's left remaining at the time in which they did fall. A second one now drops. A Sinnoh takes out Baxley from dining and rotates back up through the staircase center towards landing. JB finds one on a Vim, refragged back by Blade. A 3v3 in motion as JB had the double but then denied. And a 3v3 in motion. Diffuser going down. Blade will complete it. A Shaka finds Amp. A 3v2. Blade takes a little bit of damage from Needles as he steps away to try and get a safety net. Tags trying to go into the rear Shaka, but he narrowly escapes with his life. Teddy's watching for the air jab that is placed. Tries to shoot it. I think sets it off in the process, and it's felled no matter what. A Shaka takes Needles, and this landing staircase player finds the Maestro as he attempts to step out.
That was a great round altogether, and Hawks complimenting that nice shot was one of the best plays that we saw from Alter. Why? Because Frost heard the Selma charge detonate, and you pre-fired because you assume that Hawks is going to be holding that angle because Hawks' job is to become a flank watch at that point, looking directly into Split as well as into Astronomy. So if you pre-fire it, you might get a free lucky headshot. That's going to change up the entire round for Overture, and the loss of Hawks did exactly that. But the one critical thing was Hawks got his Selma to detonate. As soon as that opened up that triple wall, as soon as that Cade Claw was lost for whatever reason, because again, Scott, to us, it looked like that Cade was invulnerable. It looked like it would not be destroyed unless a well-timed grenade bounced perfectly. Apparently the stars aligned and delivered exactly what Overture needed. Once that Selma detonated, the long angle looking into Astro Split was created, and that post plant that Overture set up was impactful. There's no way you're ever going to break that down, because the Overture Gaming Academy, or the roster, can look at everywhere. Into Deer, into Astro, into Lamp, there's nothing that they can't shoot. And that put Alter in a very dangerous position. So those K-Claws that were just shown right now by Needles, they can be destroyed, they can be shot. The ones that we're talking about is actually on those, like, wooden reinforced beams for the ceiling. If you put one on above on both those panels, basically, they won't get destroyed.
I think that's a good call, though. A very well placed positioning from Alter. They have a great chance of being able to actually defend this well, and we've seen them be able to do that before. And I think that, in all honesty, was kind of a bit of a flub for their defense. They kind of got felled in a way that they shouldn't have. Unfortunate shots came through. The fact that we see Blade get the diffuser down in good time, that forced them to have to try and play a little bit greedier because they were wary of that time, and Overture was able to capitalize on that. That's where the mistakes were made. They just got a little bit too quick. They didn't play their own game, didn't wait for the tempo. You've got plenty of time to step in and actually take substantial control of the diffuser, of being able to replant that, but you have to be very safe in the process. Yes, we did see the fact that Teddy had to lie down to try and get an air jab, and it did tag him in the process as well. He had the opportunity to shoot it, but wanted a better angle because he needed to do it quickly and was hit because of it, which gave the audio cue, which then allowed for two players to be there, and it just was all she wrote. But this round, a minute in already, Teddy finds the first shot. Teddy finding more success with the UMP than we saw all before from Hawks and their attempt on the tertiary objective down below.
Still doing a mirror image of the previous attack from Overture, full control of the south side of the map, but we're going to see that also crucial rotation take place momentarily. The rotation and the fighting force that Overture has to make that style of play is starting to diminish one by one as there's another casualty. Sinnoh now off the board, and Overture is going to have to start to go into damage control mode very soon. They're going to have to start to lump their attackers on up and start to go for a rope style strategy, where maybe you have, some type of crossfire. Looks like Hawk's going to establish that on the other side of the map from the Asterisk windows. 2 kills for Needles now, and it's all going to crumble as Amp will find that second kill. A phenomenal defensive hold from Alter, addressing all the issues from the previous round.
Yeah, I mean, that was just any attempt we saw there from Overture to attack that was just dismantled systematically. Alter did a phenomenal job of denying all angles. They had one player who could hold 3 alone, and a player with as good of reflexes as Amp is going to be able to do just that, and that's what we saw. And I'm more curious right now. Can we see Amp with this Jaeger with an actual sight? I think that's the most important thing. Not an iron sight. Maybe that's the difference here, actually, Chief. Maybe that's the reason why Alter is up 6-3. It's because they're not bringing iron sights. It's a tough call, actually. But I think with the fact we're going back to planes and games, I think the fact that last time we saw this, where it came down at the very end to a 3v2, then it came to a 2v1, the fact of the matter is Hawks was not able to clutch up at that point in time, despite being relatively the 3rd best player on his team right now in terms of stat lines. Alter almost lost it as they did come down to the 1v1 in the end, but there was just no way an SMG-11 at that spot is going to miss that opportunity with how well they were playing it. I think Alter can take this round as long as they just play like they did last time, but Chief, if you can't recall, because your boomer brain tends to forget things 5 seconds after they're said or done, these teams have been changing strategies basically every single round, and when we haven't seen a strategy change, like we just saw Private Overture's attempted assault, then the other team, Alter, is just going to capitalize and change their strategy and win it in the end. If Alter does the same thing, but on the opposing side, and doesn't change what they did last time, then that is where Overture is going to be able to switch it up. But Alter has. We don't see the annoying shield girl, right? I'm not going to grace this presence with her name, thank goodness. I'd rather not mar you guys with that. We don't see that. We don't see the weird strategies of their holes just yet, of not playing the initial kill holes they had. We're seeing a very big emphasis towards roaming on this northern side instead of trying to play a little bit less aggressive, more passively on the south side.
Swing after swing for Ultra right now. They've been sniping away drones and a snipe onto Tim's head. What is Overture doing? You have information. Play together. Why did the solo swing from the master bedroom? Well, it's going to cost them dire players early on. Sino's going to attempt to follow it up, but Alter has fallen off. They've done their damage. They've sniped away 40% of the drone economy as well as one player. Vim would be so crucial on the execute moving forward because he's one of the operators that's going to be able to deal with the deployable shield. Only one deployable shield being shown by Alter, but it's still going to be quite powerful. The Nitrocell sent sky high. Nowhere near any target. Completely different postal code, but that's going to give Overture something. Nitrocell has been used, and there's still offsite pressure roaming below, lurking downstairs like sharps.
Minute and a half still remains in this one, and this could be the last one if Alter is able to continue capitalizing. With Vim off the board, there's breaching rounds that could have been used. Will have to be unfortunately fizzled out. The last time we saw an Ashe take that first death, it was Needles who was felled on their attacking half, and it was very, very unfortunate for them. They did manage to surmount the comeback, but it was that round that we said made no sense. It was really just Overture flubbing the last few kills and Alter capitalizing where they really shouldn't have. Opportune shot from Shaka, narrowly missing the opportunity for a kill. A nade being cooked by Sinnoh. Unfortunately, an ADS eats that one away. There is not a second. They're going to go ahead and Gone 6 that out to hopefully catch a little bit of utility up the top. The second nade does get the job done. And now that hunting vault wall is going to be breached open, and this is where Needles is going to sit with a Vector and hope to catch one off guard if they don't think they're playing that aggressively, and he does find Hawks. A 3v5 now in motion. Alter have yet to lose one. Blade attempting to peek it as well. Does find the refrag, however. A 3v4 with 30 seconds remaining. Has to go back and figure out the information. You cannot push without having the intel, and that's been the difference maker between Alter and Overture. They're playing the safe angle on Alter and not letting anything matter against them, but it doesn't seem to matter if you're just going to lose the gunfight. Shaka finds two. Amp and Baxley out for the count. A 3v2 refragged back by JB as they take down Blade. Shaka gets their four.
No.
Oh my god, you are unbelievable. Finding not just two, but four at the very last moment.
I was going to talk about how impactful Jaeger was solo playing Study, because Overture was pushing in from the north side of the map. They were pushing in solo, and I just assumed, all right, it's over. Shaka makes a last-second rotation, almost at the too late, oh crap, we've lost the round mark. He gets in the Study balcony with 22 seconds left in that round. That is cutting it close. Pre-fires a Study door, spots the Jaeger of Amp, and when Amp falls, I was like, oh, well, the coverage has now been lost. We can see Overture just go for a maps plan. Shaka says, nah, hold my beer, and just finds 3 more kills in the process, just making it look incredibly easy. Alter's positioning in that round, the way Alter played it was perfectly. They did so many things well. Wasted time on the road, sniped away 50% of the drone economy before we saw, 70 seconds take place in that round. And Overture comes back to winning that round. They make a Hail Mary rotation, exactly what was needed, and Shaka goes huge. Shaka single-handedly saved the day for Overture. If Shaka lost any of those gunfights, Overture loses that round. They lose round 10, and Alter gains 1 point for the day. They move on week number 1 to win in their calling. Incredible by Shaka. A hero play, but will Overture be able to do something similar to that? Will they have one of their players go huge and save themselves from losing the series?
I mean, it's really anyone's call, Chief. I'm going to go ahead and call it. I think that Overture can definitely get one more round. I think they have what it takes to play one more round, but it's just a matter of, can those show-out players that we've seen be able to clutch up and put their money where their mouth is, like Shaka did just last round? Can they do that once again? Alter has been a team that's looked unstoppable in a lot of their defensive holds, but obviously can still be stopped. And we talked about it in terms of Overture's defense. Whenever Shaka was able to make that impact on that flank, on that insanely high IQ level roam of just playing extremely slow on this first floor, clearing living, going to the library, just working themselves in a very slow and methodical fashion. When Shaka was able to find impact, they were winning those defensive rounds, but also seeing that on the attack. When Shaka's finding impact on the assault, Alter has nothing they can do except for just to try to get out of the way, but they've been failing to do that, especially in that last round. I still have to give it to Alter ultimately in the end. They're playing smart. They're taking a little bit of damage. You do see Teddy has taken some and downed with that nade. A kill hole was made from below, and Hall Sinnoh was able to absolutely take a massive advantage of that, and Teddy's going to have to get picked back up. They're not aware of that player being down, which will give them time to pick them back up and save them from that loss. For that hunting vault wall will be getting opened up, as well as the wall connecting inside of Classical Hall. It's just a matter of time for the hunting vault. Chief, this one is already starting off to be pretty aggressive. It's just a matter of how quickly can they get rid of that lamplight bookshelf, shield.
Look at how fast Overture is executing this round. Again, for context of the previous round 10, this rotation took place with 22 seconds left on the clock. Now it took place with exactly 90 seconds on the clock. Sino's going to make a mistake. He's going to blow himself And the strong execute that round 10 had, well, it's going to be nerfed just slightly entering into round 11 as a critical aspect has already been lost on the board. Needle's running around over by U-Bar, taking damage from the 90 repel. He will survive, and Blade's able to actually take a pick on his own. Another player somewhere near U-Bar is going to fall, but Needles is going to get a refrag. Both these rosters have been so good on the refrag game, and it's going to continue to transpire. Excellent gunplay between the two rosters, but we're going to have to see Overture make a larger play. They're going to have to swing in, and they're going to have to go for broke.
Yeah, kills dropping. Blade finds Baxley after Ampin managed to find Vim. A 2v2. Teddy has already been down, sitting at 20 HP. Very low. Only needs to get one shot, however. It'll be Blade that finds it for a 3k. Teddy out for the count. It's just Amp now trapped in Hunting Vault. Knows there's a lot happening. Has to step around the corner, rotating over towards the study side. Diffuser has been planted. Blade and Shock are now able to step out of the way and play their own game. The rotation coming from this south side. Trying to step around from Lamp. Knows their positions initially. Sees one. Sprays, but Blade finds it instead. I believe the 4K to their name in this one. And they'll survive yet another round. We may see an overtime with just how strong they've been playing.
Hero play after hero play. Overture does not want to lose this series. They want to fight their way over into match point, and they're doing a wonderful job at that. Only one more round to be shown. And it looks like that stat line that we were talking about earlier, Scott, that there has yet to be a series so far in week number 1 of UPL that hasn't ended with a maximum of a 2-round deficit. So that means every series is going 7-5 or into overtime. That's quite a stat line. Overture continuing on with that so far here on the final play day of week number 1. And I have to say, you've been talking a lot about opening up Gunvault. That's the reason why you don't open Gunvault. If you do, you only do a 1 line of X-Kairos, of Selma charges, and that's it. Because if you allow Jaeger to vault out of Gunvault, that round is absolutely differently. Because it's a 1v1, because a planter can't get off the diffuser. If Amp wins that gunfight, it's again another 1v1 on that planter who's either stopped the plant or has completed that, and it becomes a much more winnable round. That's why I always kind of furrow my brow when people say, open up Gunvault. It's an avenue that the defense can use against you. It could have been used. Thankfully, Overture elects not to actually make it a rotationable, actually, no thermite or any type of explosive device was used on that Gunvault wall, and it propels Overture forward.
They have to be propelled forward, not just in the last 2 rounds, which they have been able to do. They need one more. I mean, they have to complete the trifecta. They have to complete the comeback. At one point in time, he was 6-3. I mean, Alter completely had this game seemingly in the bag. I'm sure everybody out there can agree. It looked to be that Alter was going to walk away with this in the last bit. It looked to be that for, you know, unlike some people, for Alter, it was coming home in week 1. It unfortunately looks like Overture's going to make them work for it just a little bit harder. Still that 5v5, 2 minutes and 20 seconds left, so they burned a little bit of time. Alter have yet to lose a player. Despite the last couple rounds, they've lost some fairly early on. At least gotten downed as Teddy was taken from that kill hole used against them. It's going to be a little bit differently. Teddy's working on the long con, this roam that we've seen Shaka do time and time again, but Alter have to play it a little bit differently. They have to actually win that gunfight on that roam and actually find that impact. JB's on this Frost as well. Information given away as Teddy's forced to shoot out a drone, and now will just completely run Rack towards Mud and attempt to play safe for just a little bit longer.
Plenty of drones are just all throughout the map for Overture. They really haven't been able to get an opening kill, but those drones have given the avenue to take gunfight. Not take gunfights, but take that map control. Shaika on the other side of the map, pushing in from the north, attempting a pre-fire, but again, nothing currently being shown on that side of the map from Alter. Dawn 6 goes out, opening up and removing one of those K-Claws, and that's going to be the critical aspect for Hawks. It's imperative that one of his Selma charges goes off on that wall over by Split to start to isolate the bomb site, make sure that there is no rotation between the two sites, so JB is going to be a dead man walking over here on an island. So far, that hasn't yet taken place. Finally, Selma's going to find its wall and start to detonate.
With only a minute left, Overture still sitting a little bit worse for wear as they have lost one, and Sinnoh was a pretty important one. Make that two as JB finds the nice shot, has not yet removed that 1.5. Make it a third as they find Blade stepping in from landing. Baxley finds Vim, a 1v5. Oh no, a frost mat behind the bathtub as they step in. Oh my god. I'm out. I'm leaving. I'm out.
Bye, Scott. Well, I'll wrap things up over here. What insult to injury. What a phenomenal comeback from Overture. 2 4Ks back to back. Incredible plays, all coming to a closure. A haphazardly placed Frostmat on the other side of the bathtub, getting the series ending kill. Scott, you hate to see it. It clearly broke you. Your inner core has crumbled as a result of that. I will say, Overture impressed me. The valiant effort that they had in those final rounds, as you mentioned, it was 6-3. The series ends 5-7. I mean, what a showing by them. Sure, they end up losing the day, but they need to have their head held high because that was quite a comeback. Sure, they didn't cross the finish line, but it was a great showing nonetheless.
I mean, it was miracle play after miracle play, but in all honesty, they really did outplay Alter in those last few rounds, able to make that comeback. They really did attempt to pull back the full trifecta, and I guarantee any Alter fans out there, you're sweating. You were. I mean, you were scared for a while. I'm sure some of you were like, "Oh, well, we're dubbing on Overture right now. It's probably not that big of a deal. We'll just keep running away with it." And then Overture says, "Well, not so fast." Right? We're still here to play, and that's exactly what we saw. So, yes, full props to Overture. You played spectacular, and this is just week one. There's still plenty more games to be played. There's so much, a whole season for you to go out and eventually attempt to try and rephrase against this team and see how that's going to work out. But we'll be able to jump into a second game coming at you real soon. I know some of you out there are really excited for that one, but my name's Infernosis, joined here by Chief. We'll be right back for game two. Thank you guys very much for joining us. Welcome back, everybody. Some more UPL Summer 2021 action. My name's Infernosis, joined here by Chief, and a whole new set of teams for a whole new game. Syntax versus Valkyrie. I know that some of those Valkyrie fans out there were really excited to get into this one, coming in on the last game and watching it throughout the entirety to actually, I guess, get a little bit of a showcase of some you may be facing sometime soon. And we definitely did get to see a pretty good game, but we have another great one lined up just now.
Valkyrie is a beloved org here in the scene, but before we talk more about those players, we're actually going to bring up this map ban, see where we're going to be going in this best of one series. We saw Villa at our first series today, and you mentioned, Scott, it was a phenomenal showing. My favorite map was map number 1. It looks like your favorite map is here, Scott. I just broke him. It's not his favorite map. He hates this map. He absolutely hates this map. And I by saying that it's his favorite map, he just absolutely broke as a human being. But you know I'm allergic to saying... Whoa, I can do it too, Scott. You're so cool, man.
Let's go. Let's sing it. Oh, yeah.
I got some Club Masters. I actually have quite a sunglasses collection, so my Club Masters are here, so.
Oh, fancy guy. Fancy
Take
guy.
that L.
Yeah, I'll take that L. Sorry. I like to spend my money on actually important things, like sounding good.
Yeah?
That may be new to you, but we'll actually tend to work things out in another way.
You're talking about that buttery, melodious voice that I just don't have, that nasally voice that everyone seems to hate. Yeah, you're right, Scott. I can't do it.
Maybe we'll see, but in all honesty, I mean, Cafe, yes, it's a really boring map. I don't like Cafe as a whole, but there could be a lot of changes to Cafe. There's a lot of variation that can be put in place, and for two teams like Syntax and Valkyrie, I've seen Syntax play before. I don't think I've had the pleasure of watching Valkyrie, but I mean, if they're here in the UPL, they probably have what it takes to at least, wow me, pizzazz me, and show me something on Cafe that I think will actually make it somewhat entertaining.
Well, I mean, the Valkyrie roster is stacked. You have TPA, Luminosky, Boomski, a Challenger League champion, Momo, and Twist. That roster is gnarly. And again, there's so much experience there, particularly Challenger League Boomski's Oblivion roster days, right? I mean, he went from playing, SCL to winning CL the next season. Like, it was an incredible storyline. So that's something that the Valkyrie roster is going to have quite an asset moving forward. And again, that experience is something that we just can't overlook.
I'm really looking forward to it. You've hyped him up for me. You sold me. I was sold when I heard the first name, bro. Like, I was already like, oh, okay, TPA. Yeah, let's go in. I'm full send on that. I love TPA. I love watching him play. So, yeah, let's see it. I think we're about ready to jump in. We're getting a little bit close, but I guess we can talk a little bit about Cafe. The bane of observers' lives, trying to actually get one of the sides of the map towards, C2, C3, C1. It's that outside veranda, that balcony ledge. Just camera does not want to turn one way, so it's a really hideous view. Maybe if, the creators of Rainbow Six, whatever company that may be, the higher power that is, would fix that someday. I mean, me complaining about that's not going to do anything. Chief, I know, like, you've talked to them once because you got lucky and they, like, swiped by you at some point in time in your life. Maybe you should, like, bring that up or something, like, to, like,
What are you talking about?
Observers hate Cafe because the balcony, like, you can't turn the camera one way.
How does that have to do with me?
I don't know. Bring something up. Maybe people will like you then. The observers will like you. Like, just like do them a favor. Like,
I'm just gonna make you you're gonna be tortured on this entire broadcast. You said consuming barns. I can't actually say, it starts with a B.
Barn burner?
Right? Like, I'm allergic to that term. So, when I make fun of you on Cafe is the only way of bringing that back up. But hey, we don't have to actually just say dumb things on the mic because we're actually into the server. And, well, more dumb things. Of course, it's going to be Thatcher as your primary ban, because who hasn't banned the oldest individual on Rainbow? Because why? He just turns off your gadget. You don't need to know why. He's the most hated person here and probably gonna be the first ban. There you go. Surprise, surprise. Welcome to competitive Rainbow Six Siege.
Chief, they're not supposed to know that we can, like, see a minute and a half ahead of them, so calling out that it was Thatcher was, like, inappropriate. State of the script. So yes, obviously first ban going through, Syntax taking Thatcher off. No surprise there, no shocker. Valkyrie now is the next two. They get to pick up what they want to put down, and they're going to go ahead and put down their next attacking choice. We saw Zofia last time on Villa. I don't think we'll see that again. It's going to be Flores, so the Rotero drones will not roll their ugly head into this round, into this map whatsoever, and I think that's pretty strong, because I've seen Rotero drones. that completely decimate this third floor attempted defense. I mean, they just roll their way into bar. They take out a couple of those small little tables that people like to hide behind, especially when connected to C2, that a lot of maestros like to hide behind. And it's just something that's almost impossible to try and contend against. Mirror will be taken out. This is more of a tertiary, more of a bathroom wall behind bar wall kind of play, holding up against that cigar lounge, and also a little bit of a kitchen hold as well, because some people do like to bring that out to take control of the bakery side. I'm not a big fan of that personally, but it may be just because I never get to see mirrors when it comes to cafe. But last band to go through, Syntax will take off the very, very good band here. Perfect band. Thank you very much. Clash out for the count.
Now, earlier in the week, it was play day number 1 of week 1. We saw, well, Mystic bring out Cafe, and they brought out one of the most unique strategies that we've seen. I've always been talking about this, and teams have never really quite brought it out the way that I envisioned it until Mystic really showed their hand. It was a full second floor control of bar upstairs. So it was Nitrocell denial, it was mini game denial, and whatever strategy the offense brought out, there was some way that Team Mystic was able to bring it out. I think, Scott, you would have actually been a fan of that cafe just because it wasn't kind of, you're like, oh, hey, we're pushing in through the red hatch, we're opening up red wall, we're pushing in through ticket booth. Oh no, we got Nitrocell. Oh no, there's a deployable shield with 8 million ADSs. What do we ever do? It was just an absolute slugfest. Exactly what we want to see. Now, since we're moving downstairs in kitchen as our primary bomb site for Syntax, this could actually play out very similar, because the way you hold this bomb site is one of two ways. You either expand on the first floor linearly, either through bakery or through VIP, or you commit fully to a roam. Now, with mute reinforcing small bake or cake wall, that's going to start to lead, hey, this might actually be an extension into bakery, but with a full reinforcement of that west wall, it's going to either be a light version of that, or it's going to just be a bait and switch style strategy where Syntax says, hey, Valkyrie, you're an attack. If you want to push in through bakery, you're going to have to deal with some of our pre-mini games.
The mind games that are so important towards R6 kind of play a really big role when it comes to this map. The fact Valkyrie wasn't banned leads a huge presence to be held in terms of actually gathering that intel, and it's going to be a higher level of difficulty for this current attacking squad of Valkyrie to actually find those cams and deny that high level of information that a Valkyrie, the Syntax's Valkyrie, can bring to the table. A little confusing to say, none the least. But this Valkyrie roster choosing not to bring an IQ, which would have been a great counter for that, as Syntax's strange Clash ban, sorry I said her name, I apologize, has definitely turned up the ban phase on its head and has made this one a little bit more tedious for them in terms of their attack. But they can also bring it out in the second half if they actually can survive until the second half, so to say, even though they'll get at least one round at minimum. Syntax, on this defensive side, we do see they've got that Wamai. They have the opportunity to get those magnets to contest. They have the ADSs. Flexo probably actually has a site as well. That may be a new site for some of us here who had to watch the last game. But TPA, a very important person here for this roster, kind of playing a little bit of an entry because Flexo's down below him. Red stairs more towards the first floor. Drones do go out. Misses about 15 shots onto the drone, but does manage to tag one as Forza clears out some floorboards and attempts to gain a sight line.
Funny, Scott's our second blade of the day that's going to be entering into our lobby, and Nitrocell goes off, not finding any impact whatsoever, and a second one's going to follow up as well. Also now missing. So the call center from Hellstyle strategy is not going to have any impact whatsoever. All explosive devices other than 2 impact grenades, but that won't really work if you're tossing them through a ceiling, has been expended. Momo on flank watch, a very aggressive player known for their mechanical skill, is actually going to be able to find an opening tool playing a role that I've never actually seen them do. Again, Momo is always a primary entry type, but finding exactly what they needed.
They needed to find an impact, and there has been one. Momo has taken a lot of damage as well, sitting at about 10 HP. One player sitting down below in Freezer. You can hear that it has been hard breach. Boomski has used those Kairos pellets to try and gather that level of success. Forza is using that murder hole that they've been creating with this sledgehammer to try and actually find impact. They know where at least one player is. They've seen the toes, and they don't need to be a jackal to do that. So it's interesting to see whether or not that impact, that the frag potential that is there from above will actually come to fruition because there's only 27 seconds left. They have to make the rotation. One of them's wanting to head through front entrance. Cadence finds Momo. Boomski and a free frag back to Blade. Anomaly will be able to be felled by a teammate of Boomski, and Boomski felled right back by Cadence, assisting himself. Twist does find Hex. Flexo's on the opposing side, really far away by Kochek. Cadence also has to step forward. Forza's all the way down, ready to push into the site. Twist has to step back from this freezer entry. Forza trying to pre-fire, but Flexo still finds it. A down Flexo, he has to start the plant. No time, and he just tries to spray, but Syntex narrowly escape with a round 1 victory despite all of the odds looking to be against them.
What a round. I was starting to think Valkyrie did everything right in that round, taking early control, droning upstairs, droning the second floor, and starting vertical clear. As soon as a Nitrocells missed from Syntax, it looked like Valkyrie had already completed the round. There was nothing that they needed to do. Unfortunately, though, they spent too much time in the vertical angles and not enough time actually being prepared for the execute. Not enough time starting to relocate their troops to that first floor. Whether or not they're pushing down the brown stairs, into VIP, or into Coat, it really doesn't matter. What matters, though, is what Valkyrie does with those attackers. They need to drone them out and be prepared. Who on earth pushed in through Kochek and got absolutely slammed? Do you expect somebody to not be playing that angle? I mean, one of the most common positions to play with 30 seconds left on that clock. I mean, Valkyrie, again, they did such a wonderful job of minding the clock up until the final execute. But we know that Valkyrie is now capable of a strong attack. They're just going to have to rectify it moving on forward. Now, since time was not on their side in round number 1, they're now going to be executing onto the upstairs bar sign, where time might not always matter because you just have to take only a few buffer rooms before you actually start that plant process. Now, I say only a few and say that time really doesn't matter, but it does matter. It's just less map control that you have to acquire, which means in theory, you could be able to execute it sooner, but in practice, it still takes about 2 minutes before you can even go for a plant.
2 minutes and 50 seconds may remain, but in all honesty, from what we saw last round, the action won't get dropped until about 15 seconds left. Maybe 1 kill between then. It looks to be that Valkyrie's going to have their work cut out for them to be able to remove out that pixel hold. That's at the corner of Cigar, and it's going to be a pretty important one. Cadence is just sprinting around, and 30 seconds have already passed. That's plenty of time for this Valkyrie side to actually step in and actually be able to contest on the second floor. They could have stepped in from mining, and already made their way over to Train Museum, and it could have been very interesting to see if an early pick would have been able to gather it, because Cadence is just sprinting around and not watching their angles. I know that you're not a big fan of this here, Chief, but the sprint key on your keyboard is just because it's there doesn't mean you have to use it. I know that you like to take it off and yell and point into your camera just like I do, so I don't like to see Cadence sprinting around, even if it is the start of the round, but they do need to be in that training museum so they can actually toss their Nitrocell up above. As of the current moment, with this surrogates dropped by Yotsuba, they have to be a little bit more wary about just more than one thing. Illuminati now down. Twist takes out Hex in the process. Yotsuba wasted a lot of their ammo and only has 92 rounds total left. That P10 Roni is going to be very dangerous, but not for much longer if they keep expending all that ammo.
TPA in a position to have coverage against his fallen comrade. Illuminati is going to be picked up, and now the fighting force of Valkyrie is all on their feet once again. They're going to have to find something new to deal with. That's going to be the deployable shield over here by Pixel. TPA falls. Boomski's down but not out, now finished off by the slug shotgun. All of a sudden, Valkyrie just lost their man count instantaneously. The push on to the east has now suffered. Diffuser has been lost over in CS, or also known as Cigar Shop, and now Valkyrie's going to have to start to scramble. They're going to have to pick up that utility and start to once again execute. Start to push on forward and deal with how Syntax is playing. Yosapa being very aggressive, over by New Balance, pushes out a ton of damage, unable to down Twist, and his rotation back home into B1 has been found. Both rosters now tying themselves up, but both teams not looking particularly pretty. However, Valkyrie, the HP disadvantage entirely.
30 seconds remain. The action dropped a little bit sooner than last time. Nate still being expended. Twist attempting to find a firefight, but Flexo steps out from that back room and finds the kill. Now a 3v1. Illuminati has to not just find one, but 2 and 3 on top of it. Tries to find Flexo, but Flexo will not be outdone. Actually using a scope in the 416Z. How about that? And it does manage to find not just 1, but 2 in its own process. So a great round, again, in terms of defense. Syntax will slide another one through. That one a little bit more one-sided, a little bit lopsided, a little further, as Valkyrie almost scraped by the first one, but round 3 is going to be a really pivotal one. This tertiary objective choice of reading room and fireplace. This is where it's a bit more important to still play the third floor, but also have to watch your feet. Floorboards can be busted out from above and below, and it's exceedingly difficult to survive a dual-sided onslaught from two sides you aren't necessarily anticipating. There is no safety net, no defensive position that can be held for too long as Valkyrie plays their cards right. And from their current outlook of their operator lineup, the only one who can really contest and get those floorboards is going to be Sledge. I mean, maybe you want to waste some X-Cars pellets. You can throw some nades to the floor above. You can use Illuminati's impacts. But in all honesty, I think it's just a smarter choice to play the third floor, take full control, maybe drop towards main lobby, flank around and go in through this northern door connecting into reading. Or maybe just rush in from balcony edge. I'm sorry to go ahead and say it here, Nova. You may actually have to observe the balcony ledge and make it try to look pretty somehow, despite Ubisoft's best attempts at making it impossible.
I have to say, though, Valkyrie, they are a team that should be known for coordination. They're a team that should be able to synergize what their attacking execute looks like, but we never saw that in round 2. Something that I preach all the time is how do you actually deal with utility? And I usually reference either the classical hallway deployable shield on Villa or the pixel shield. Why? Because they're the hardest to deal with. Because you need to have somebody covering, somebody flashing, and somebody actually destroying the deployable shield. The critical thing, and why I said it first, the coverage was not there for Valkyrie. So the player with a flashbang, actually I think it was a frag grenade, swung the deployable shield with the frag in hand and dies. Because Flex takes the gunfight. That's why you need to have 2 people looking at that angle. One with the explosive or the ranged projectile, the other one who can actually shoot back. Valkyrie has to coordinate when they move on forward. They need to learn that lesson now as they're pushing into into Cocktail. Why? Because you're going to see that exact style of play. There's going to be Fruity Gates, there's going to be deployable shields and ADXs. Flexo on a nice swing, able to find Illuminati, getting that refrag as falling comrade that eats early parts of the round. Momo's going to tack onto the fort as well. Overswung 2 times now for Syntax. They had great discipline in the previous 2 rounds, and now Syntax is just swinging for the fence. Unfortunately, all that pressure to the east side of the map has been lost more or less for free due to that overly aggressive play.
Overly aggressive and not really that impactful at this point in time. Syntax are 2 men down, and yes, you're on the defense. You have the advantage in terms of being able to anchor and play safe, but Valkyrie have the floorboards that can completely sweep. It makes it completely impossible in most scenarios to actually sit in a safe position. You've got them now heading down white steps. Bad position to try and push because you've got one player holding below with a very cheeky angle, just waiting, Blade, praying for them to step downward, but it looks to be they're more favoring the opportunity to go down that library hatch. I think one may be heading down white stairs right now. Blade will have to be careful, but so will that player individually. Valkyrie have that man advantage and need to hold on to it. 1 minute remains. Finally sees the mute jammer. 1 minute remains, and got a very spread out diversity for the Syntax defensive hold. Momo steps into reading room, finds Hex, Blade finds Twist and a refrag, but refragged back by TPA, and Momo finds the last, completely finishing off this Syntax defense. Valkyrie looked very strong in this tertiary objective.
Momo's going to be an individual we have to watch in future engagements. Again, Momo has been somebody who's been playing a lot of the primary entry or secondary entry role, now relegated to technically secondary support or flank watch. But what Momo is going to be able to do very well is spring into action and take gunfights, because they already have the mechanical skill, and when they're not needed on flank, they're going to kind of evolve into like the 3rd string entry fragger. Now, I say 3rd string, but they're going to be able to hold their own with any primary entry. And Momo did exactly that, realizing, hey, I will have more impact dropping in through the laundry hatch than I will just sitting back with my hands behind my head and watching one of the stairwells. Great read by Momo, and something that we're going to see more out of this very young and talented player. However, Syntax, you mentioned it in the mid part of that round. I have no idea what they're doing, Scott. I have no idea why they were taking those gunfights, because they have all their utilities still available. They haven't sniped away any drones, and they're just swinging. It looked like it was almost like ego peaking or overconfidence from winning 2 rounds in a row. If you give Valkyrie any amount of momentum, if you give Valkyrie a dumb peak or a dumb angle, they will exploit it. I mean, look what TPA did that round. Look what Momo did that round. But Valkyrie, they've also made some mistakes, and they're really the biggest mistake for me was round 1. Perfect initial execute on the first 2 floors, and they just stopped looking at their watches. They lost track of time, and now moving forward, Valkyrie has to be conscious. As soon as 60 seconds is shown in that round, they're going to have to relocate some of the attack force onto that first floor and actually be prepared for that execute. But they're going to find themselves on the roadblock. It is a different strategy from Syntex. It is now more emphasis on that middle floor. And Twist is party to Bakery, taking a gunfight. He finds one in the blade. He's now DB and no, but still more aggressive plays from Syntex, and they're the loser of every single one of those exchanges.
A very, very unfortunate engagement going on. Syntex already losing 2. Valkyrie just steps in, swings in, and completely puts their presence to be known early in this round. Extremely early. Most of the last few rounds, it's been the last minute where all the action. The first 2 was the last 15 seconds where all the action was. But in this one, just completely, I want to say manhandling, just letting their presence be known, swinging into sight with no care in the world. I mean, Valkyrie's just going to town. I think there's not really a better way to explain it. Yotes was trapped inside side of Kitchen Cooking, has to be careful as they attempt to get some long shot angles towards Bakery. TPA is in a bad firefight position as well to contend against it. Nate is cooked in pocket. Could be a good toss as they've opened up the southernmost edge of that Bakery connecting wall. Drone still being dropped out by TPA. You can get so much information because there's literally no one to contest. Flexo still watching the opposing side. The entrance maybe towards Bar, towards Kochek Paul. Shots do go against TPA finally, but Yotsuba does take some damage as well. Nade 8 at the last second by that ADS, saving their life. They're going to have to step away, but they don't do it at all, and Twists will capitalize with a nice nade toss. It's the NBA Finals right now, but it's looking like it may be the MLB ones because that toss was spectacular.
Still coverage from up the stairs, using that vertical angles against Valkyrie. 2v5 post play. You're going to have to eventually return back to your bomb site. Flexo, the only one on site, has now been lost. A meat locker drop is inevitable, and there's a drop already being watched by Illuminati. And there's Valkyrie rectifying their mistakes from round number 1. We mentioned round number 1, their full map control clear. It just took too long. Valkyrie says, we respect that hold, and we're just going to do a pure linear execute, pushing in through a big Bakery. Syntax overswung once again, and now Valkyrie is going to tie up this series.
Tying it up in a way that we didn't really anticipate, with the way that we saw Syntax take the first 2 in a pretty dominant fashion. The first one they kind of escaped with it, but they were still in the better position because they forced in the last 10-second execute where they had to plant or they had to die, right? I mean, that was the play. Syntax still had it, and they managed to take it, especially round 2. It was dominant, completely dominant, but we just saw Valkyrie do the same thing back-to-back. 2 rounds in a fashion where Syntax got completely slapped sideways, slapped silly. I mean, backhanded and front-handed, both sides. I mean, there really is no way to say it in a nice way. Syntax kind of played out of their element, and Valkyrie just said, hey, I'm going to reminisce back to the time when, you know, Valkyrie was really OP, the operator, not the team name, but I mean, she's still, let's be brutally honest here. The amount of intel she can gather is still broken, but Valkyrie's looked really good, and I'm going to put my money on them at this point in time to manage to get at least this next round, or maybe the round after that, because we're going back to the 3rd floor, the one where Valkyrie has had the biggest weak link, where they got slept on before. They managed to make the resurgence and win it again on Kitchen, where they had failed in round 1, but now it's a whole new round on 3rd. They know the way Syntax plays this. Yes, Flexo popped off and found 3, maybe even 4 in that round 2, but let's be honest here, Flexo hasn't really shown up in the last 2 prior, and that could be the defining factor for Syntax. If they aren't able to have these players that need to show up, then Valkyrie, with that roster you bragged about not so humbly at the beginning of knowing, I mean, come on. It's going to be a nasty showing if Valkyrie can just continue to sweep this. It's a very dangerous objective and a very dangerous team.
And we also saw from our previous series of the day, Euro plays is not going to be a sustainable strategy to end up winning. You're going to need something a little bit more dynamic. And, you know, two 4Ks and around, almost able to bring a series back. That's what we saw on our games earlier. But again, eventually ended up losing. Why? Because strategies weren't there. Mechanical skill was there. Mechanical skill might be able to get you around here and there, but eventually it's going to crumble because you need your entire team to be on the same wavelength, actually finding kills. We saw Valkyrie's over 5 ticket booth, but a premature Valkyrie camera. Again, there's a camera in that position. You should know exactly when to detonate it. Unfortunately, that was the second time that we've seen Synthetic just haphazardly launching nitrocells downrange.
Synthetic? Is that what is that? Synthetic?
Yeah, we were joking about calling them Synthetic earlier today. Basically, it was SYN was their abbreviation. We're like, no, we are not doing that. So it was combined as one. My bad, sue me, AJ.
Yeah, we had a new idea for the thing, but that one was vetoed pretty quickly for the initials. But Flexo finds the first pick again. Washrooms is this player's domain. Flexo is completely uncontested when it comes to this. Now it is a 5v4. Flexo is peeking the other direction as well from this Pixel, but there's Momo actually finding the pick. Yotsumar from outside finds Force as they try to step in. A Nitro finds Twist as they repel in through that outside window. A very successful one at that. Illuminati and Momo, the last two standing for this Valkyrie roster. They can get the job done. Momo does have 6 kills in their name, an absolutely massive margin in comparison to anyone else besides Flexo on this Syntex roster. Shots connecting. Momo tags up Cadence, I believe, on this white stairs. Oh! Nasty flick from Momo as they find, but unfortunately Blade is there with a TCSG. A 3v1 as Illuminati's left standing. They only have 1 kill to their name, and it's gonna stay that way as Hex finds the kill from white stairs.
Continuing to the bane of Valkyrie, Bar is going to crumble for them once again, and they just struggle at taking control of Piano. Flexo's positioning, whether or not it's in washrooms, on the solo reinforced wall, or behind his deployable shield, he just makes every single gunfight he takes look easy. And so far, Valkyrie has yet to find a strategy to be able to deal with him. Why not Valkyrie attempt an upside down repel in the white corridor window? That way, Flexo won't quite have the rotations, the comfortable avenue between Pixel as well as the washrooms. If he wants to play that position, the only escape route he's going to have is into bar back storage. Again, it seems like Valkyrie is kind of stuck in their ways. They see one push, and they just attempt to go straight on forward with it. Whatever happens, they're just not going to deviate away from. That could be quite concerning, but to be fair, Valkyrie has deviated and changed some of their attacks. It's only taken place on one bomb site. That's going to be the kitchen bomb site. And now Syntax is bringing out once again. We've seen 2 style of plays for Valkyrie. One being the linear push in through Big Bakery, opening up the wall as soon as possible, forcing the roamers to return back to site as fast as they can, which was a winnable round for Valkyrie. And then we've seen the full roam flare, where Valkyrie ended up slipping up just a bit, ended up forfeiting the round. Now, what is Valkyrie going to do? Is it going to be another Bakery push, or is it going to be a full roam flare?
I think they kind of need to get rid of the individuals that are kind of flanking around. This is a massive map, and while I hate how massive it is, it's interesting to see my favorite playstyle, which is that roam, that really aggressive style roam, not just any information style roam, but an aggressive style. You kind of have to get rid of it. Valkyrie can continue to find success like they did in round 4 and 5, and they can do that as long as they don't lose Twist to an early kill from Yotsuba. And that P10 Roni, yes, it's deadly, but it's no excuse to be felled off by it in literally the first 15-20 seconds of the round. Shots go into the feet of Illuminati as Yotsuba is stunned out from this lifeline concussive blast. Hex narrowly escaping a shot opportunity from the rear, but they're back inside of sight. This kitchen cooking and kitchen service site didn't work too well last time for Syntex, but obviously they're thinking things will work a little bit better for them this time, but not for Flexo, who can apparently play only in washroom as they're felled off by the opposing boom.
Yeah, getting pushed like that and smoked like that is absolutely a grissom moment. Unfortunately, Valkyrie's going to lose it. One of their critical operators, Diana off the board. You won't quite have the flexibility to drone on forward. It actually is going to not change anything because Valkyrie is going to hit the reverse Uno card. Momo finds one, and now the bomb site for Syntax already starting to be exposed. Now, Yotsuba on a long angle over by Coat is something that Valkyrie is going to need to deal with. They're going to have to either rotate somebody on over and open up that door frame and apply some pressure. You don't actually have to take that gunfight. You just have to make sure Yotsuba is uncomfortable in that position and constantly being feared of being peeked. Well, there's a push on forward. Valkyrie found plenty of kills. Now it's on Yotsuba. Stuck over in the whiskey hallway. 3 targets to find. One of those is down to 25 HP, or has lost 25 HP in a previous gunfight, but it's all in vain. It's Illuminati on the swing in from True Whiskey Proper. Finds the kills, that's Valkyrie, and in half 3-3.
Well, an absolutely just slaughter of a round. I mean, there's no other say. I said it earlier. We're in round 4 and 5 where round 3 and 4, where Valkyrie proceeded to slap frontways and backways Syntax. That one was even worse. I mean, in Yotsuma at one point was in a 4v1. I mean, that was a nasty round. Yes, Syntax got the early pick. They found a nice one, and I said things aren't going to work if you do that, right? If you lose a player that early, but yet they say, oh, we don't care. Literally, it means nothing to us. We don't even need that player. No offense to them. We're just going to still show up and find kills. Yotes was the only person on this roster that was, for Syntax, that was able to find a kill that wasn't in the first 10 seconds off of a really nasty kind of spawn peak scenario. So Valkyrie now have to try it off on the defense. But Cafe recently, Chief, I don't know if you've been noticing this as well. Cafe has been extremely attacker-sided in my most recent history of casting this map. And that's such an interesting thing because 99% of maps are defensive-sided. The only ones that really aren't is arguably Coastline, despite professional stats saying that it's still defender-sided, and Chalet, which is like 67% attacker-sided. Cafe is kind of flipping towards the attack. Attacking strategies have been adapting and evolving so much in recent times that defenses have really no way to contest against the assault that comes forward. The only strong objective to defend has typically been this third floor, and it's just because of that washroom pixel holds. And when you lose that, then 9 times out of 10, the attackers in good time can take the rest of the objective.
I'm actually curious. I'm actually going to bring up the stats to see exactly what the win rates are for our map. So the defensive win rate on Villa currently in Stage 2 in NAL is a 55% win rate, which means the attackers are winning more than the defenders. Or sorry, that's for Villa right now. I'm reading the wrong one. Cafe is attacker sided, pardon me. So Cafe is 57% overall win rate for the defense. The best bomb site is Kitchen Service with a 75% win rate. Bars has a 53% win rate, and Reading has a 43% win rate, and Mining and Dining, which actually has a ton of plays, 10 plays to be precise, has a 50% win rate. GPA goes nuclear throughout the stats, getting bored with the jargon terms of numbers, finding 2 incredibly early kills. Syntax, a haphazard push already, with no drone coverage whatsoever. 2 primary entries already nuked.
Nuked in a very dominant fashion. I mean, that's not just a nuke. I mean, at this point, Valkyrie's going to get... what was the one in Advanced Warfare that was like the version of a nuke but wasn't actually a nuke? It was just them trying to adapt it and ended up being terrible, and the game itself wasn't really that good.
Terrible. It's not even worth bringing up on broadcast.
Yeah, sorry. I apologize. That's almost
it's not
worse
like you've ever got one
in
in the first place, so that's why you don't remember it.
Yeah, that's probably not much work went into it. I mean, to be fair, when was the last time a Call of Duty completely was like wowing? Let me guess. Modern Warfare 2. But that's just because I'm a UMP
3
fanboy.
Was fun.
Black Ops' games were always fun. Almost every Black Ops was good. I even kind of liked Black Ops 4. I'm not going to lie. I kind of got into Black Ops 4. But not as much as the originals. Forza, or TPA I should say, has been down, not finished off. Boomski finds 1 and 2. And it's a flawless round to clap back for Valkyrie. So, Chief, yeah, despite Syntax's best attempts, especially in the beginning half of this current match on Cafe, Valkyrie is beginning to kind of separate the distance and put their name known. A flawless victory? I mean, what a better way to start off on the defense.
And it's interesting, we're talking about Pro League statistics. The worst bomb site, which includes Mining and Dining, is actually Reading and Dining, which is unique because at a time, the best bomb site in all the competitive Rainbow Six Siege was Reading Room. And it was replaced by Oregon's, I guess it'd be Meeting Room and Kitchen, and that which had a ridiculous win rate. And for CGG, for context, for a bomb site to be statistically viable, which means has been played X amount of times, and will actually say, hey, this bomb site has a certain amount of win rate, is 10 rounds. So Mining and Dining seems like a competitive play, at least at the North American professional level, is better than Reading Room. Each their own. Again, there hasn't been that many plays on Cafe, only 6 plays on Cafe, so still not a lot of numbers to show, true statistical viability, but it's interesting to say the least. And now that Valkyrie is flexing their legs on defense, we're probably going to see them take more and more rounds, just like they did in round 7, where we see TPA go absolutely nuclear, which is kind of interesting because he's been pretty silent so far in this series. He was sitting at only 2 kills on attack. As soon as he goes over into defense, he doubles his kills.
Well, yeah, doubling is a bit of an interesting margin. Once you switch over to the defense, being able to do that's kind of something else. It's kind of like when bowling the other day. Somebody by stroke 6 managed to double their points because they managed to gutter ball every single one except their first throw. So it's weird to think that somebody's able to do that at this point this late. Maybe a little sad in some margins to have not been able to find an impact early on enough, but have obviously still being able to make that impact. We saw Flexo, who wasn't finding impact in basically any objective except for third floor defense, and when that third floor defense did come out, it was spectacular. It was near flawless in most accounts. Yes, the second one they did get felled early, but they managed to find 2 kills, and that was enough to warrant their position there. The trade +1 is better than nothing every single time, 10 times out of the week. Yeah, this early round. This is going to be a quick rush. Chief, they're going to rush in from terrace. They're going to jump into the outside, head into the reading room, and get this plant number low. Oh, no, it's not happening.
You thought it was reading room again.
It's not happening, though. No, look, he got shut down on the entrance.
Oh, shotgun in hand, the Buck Skeleton Key being shown, but the whole reason why we saw the Swift execute was to take control of reading room as soon as possible. Twist is yeeted. Where's the shots? Why is he not dead? There he is. Flexo's going to eventually get that kill. But we saw that happen for Syntax because they wanted to Buck Skeleton Key C1 as soon as possible, try to dish out some early damage. Unfortunately, there was early damage, but to the offense of Syntax. Now only 2 of their teammates remain, and they're baiting on the skyline, not looking particularly well. Flexo is going to have bullets whiz over his head. Illuminati, you can hear that audio cue. Rotation from behind, and Illuminati is going to be the sore loser of that gunfight. Now sitting on maybe a 1 HP, 2 at most. So a gunfight that he takes, he has to make sure he does not take any damage whatsoever, because he will be felled practically instantly.
I mean, come on, that's 3 HP. Come on, you gotta know at least that, right? I mean, that's 3 HP.
Is it? Is it really, Scott?
I have no idea. I just feel like you would be wrong in most scenarios for that. So. But obviously, Toxic Babes being tossed out, and that's a very unfortunate thing for this Valkyrie's, for the Syntax squad, sorry to say, because Flexo and Blade really need to step in. They're running out of time, 30 seconds left. They're going to face off against 4 people. Really 3 1/4. Yes, Illuminati maybe at low HP, and they're still involved, but it's kind of difficult to hold an angle, peek an angle against Flexo and Blade, who have been playing pretty out of their minds so far. Malusi, that Banshee will open up, and yes, it has received that nerf where you can shoot it out. Momo takes a little bit of damage as Flexo peeks at Blades, managed to find Boomski at 2v3, 12 seconds remaining, but Momo's there with a shotgun, finding 2, and Valkyrie will take round 8 and spread this margin even further.
Chaotic round for Syntax. They wanted early map control so they could shotgun Skeleton Key everything that Valkyrie had set up. Unfortunately, though, it just did not work, simply because they didn't drone enough of the map out. Why wasn't there a pre-placed drone somewhere on the circle table of pillars? Why wasn't somebody watching it? What was that round? Why would you make that rush without full information and coverage? It seems like a silly, too aggressive play. But again, Syntax, one of their biggest weaknesses is the fact that they play way too aggressive. They have no idea when to say, all right, we have map control, we don't have map control, let's do it in a more traditional manner instead of just, balls to the wall, YOLOing into not the bomb site, but into a buffer room. It just seems to be a little bit too much. Now downstairs in the kitchen, honestly, if you're going to rush any bomb site, why not attempt to rush this? We saw Valkyrie do it, and it was pretty successful for them, so why not reinvent the wheel?
Reinvent the wheel. They actually already have done that. They've actually done that. There's like wheels now that are like there's like skateboard wheels that aren't actually like circles, right? And they allow you to actually they're called like shark wheels or something like that. They're almost like a Z. They're not like super like Z. They're not sharp, but they're rounded Zs. And apparently they do off-road better. They're called like shark wheels or something like that. I'm not a skater. I don't know. Yeah. Like, you can look it up. Like, there's like skateboard wheels that aren't perfect circles. It's interesting. So yes,
Oh,
they have
I see it,
reinvented
yeah.
the wheel. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Like, you wouldn't think it can ride. Apparently, it's even smoother than like normal skate tracks. So it's interesting to see. You know, you learn something new every day when you're browsing YouTube Shorts, and for some reason, some 45-year-old man skating
Okay, well, hold on.
shows up on my feed.
They are a perfect cylinder, by the way. That needs to be mentioned. They're just a grooved cylinder, and they twist in the middle. They're basically like a sine wave of a wheel. That makes sense.
Yes. I mean, I know what they look like. Somebody else Google them. If you're really curious, Google them, because, yes, they reinvented the wheel. Still a perfect sphere. But they also make wheels now that are like, they have no air in them. They're just like rubber with compression. So it's interesting. Science is wild. Technology is wild. We're progressing more and more every day. But I'll tell you what's not really progressing at this point in time. Syntex's attack. Valkyrie's done a good job of being able to keep it off. Yes, but this bakery hard wall has been opened up and they can step in, but no kills have been gathered. Syntax has failed to drop one, and Boomski is not failing to drop one. Yotsuba's down for the count, now stepping the objective. Yokai Drone dropped. Flexo does find Momo, a 4v4. Flexo dropped from the wall. Not a bad time for TPA. Oh my god, Hex finds teaming on a refrag. Boomski, Hex, Cadence, Boomski, now a player down of Cadence. Illuminati and Twist are the last two remaining. Blade has to fight off in a one-man down situation. Does not bode well for Syntax. Valkyrie have this situation in the bag with only a minute and a half left.
And there is the down but not out player confirmed. It's a 1v2 at this point. Blade knows exactly where those bullets comes from, traces it back, and finds Illuminati. Now 1v1. Full information this swing for Blade. He has the red pings, but that player has relocated over by Java. Doesn't know exactly where to put his crosshairs, and the round will now go to Valkyrie, confirming themselves a guaranteed match point. Will overtime be confirmed? Or is this Valkyrie walking home with a day and breaking the streak of a 2-round deficit throughout week number 1?
A 2-round deficit, and this could be that break, like you said. It was almost that break last match, but it was brought back. We could still see it brought back. We could still see Syntax make this resurgence. I know the Syntax roster is strong. Flex has been able to pop off. Yes, the majority of their kills were made in third floor on defense, but they've still been able to maintain that margin of excellence and be able to keep themselves on top of their team's leaderboard. Whether that's a positive for him or maybe a little bit of a negative for the rest of the team not popping off as much as they need to be to give themselves the round victories. But we're going to be heading over to Reading Room and Fireplace Hall. We've seen Syntax do the rush from outside Terrace Store, rushing into Reading Room. I hope we see that again. Really hope we see Valkyrie fail to defend that, because I love seeing a rush through that doorway. Even if they don't, going to the third floor, using your sledge to clear out floorboards, it'll work just the same. They've already managed to do it before, or Valkyrie managed to do it before, so I think there is still a margin of success. This is where Valkyrie made the comeback earlier in round 3, so Syntax could replicate that same strategy.
Dude, if we see another rush, man, I'll be so excited. I mean, maybe Valkyrie's going to be prepared. I mean, what you do is you sledge the door and you YOLO it on forward. But you have to make sure you have drones somewhere to the west, because Valkyrie will swing from pillars. It will happen. Whether or not it's in the post plan, whether or not it's during the live part of the round, maybe it's the end part of the round, I promise you Valkyrie at some point will take a gunfight from pillars, so you have to be somewhat prepared. But as we see members from Syntax starting to rappel up the north face of the building as well as the west, sadly, Scott, we're not going to see a YOLO rush. It's going to be a traditional execute for Syntax. They're going to push into the top part of the map, drone every single nook and cranny, and it's going to, unfortunately, put you to sleep.
Yeah, this whole map usually does, But I've liked what I've seen to come back from Valkyrie. A 2-round complete take, or almost sweep by Syntax, and then just Valkyrie saying, yeah, we're done with that. And we're gonna wake up ourselves, much like I feel like half the time when I play Cafe, I need to wake up. But at this point in time, TPA still holding launching.
So that's why.
Yeah, that might be it. Yeah, except I don't actually, play R6. To be fair, I don't actually typically play R6. Definitely not ranked. That's not my forte. I'm more of a classic kind of guy, just playing the casual, because I don't like sweating. I sweat enough. I live down south. We sweat enough down here normally, so it's not. Isn't that right, Hyper Producer? Yeah, he also lives down here. But Syntax, obviously, with 3-round deficit, they need to find a lot of success. Not just a one-off bit of success. They need to make the full comeback, and Valkyrie is looking to just completely deny that, and they've done a spectacular job of it so far. I'm going to go ahead and say it. Syntax probably take 1, if they can even do it. Valkyrie may just completely deny it, but I am going to go ahead and say early, Valkyrie with this absolutely goated roster, looks like they're going to put away Syntax.
It's the little things in the round, though, and Synthetics is actually being very mindful of the little things. We saw Yotsuba's Twitch drone go out, deal with all of Illuminati's, well, ADS's. Now Illuminati's on an island by himself. His Goyo shield detonates an explosive. He is not going to be sitting very pretty. A flank from behind through wood, and there's Illuminati off the board. Hex now attempting to find a second one. He sees him over and launching, but is unable to actually land that shot or line up his crosshairs. Sure, Valkyrie has the man disadvantage. We're going to have to see what they're going to be able to do to bring back this round. They won't be able to use any of those nitro cells. It's going to come down to individual gunplay and how they can get.
Yeah, clicking heads is kind of the most important part when it comes to a shooter here, Chief. And while you may not have very much experience with that, both these rosters typically do. Momo has already clicked 11 heads so far. Boomski and Twist with 9 apiece each. And Illuminati has been the player that's been lagging behind in terms of kills, but their utility has been spectacular. And when you're playing a Jaeger, you only need to place him down for most utility usage. You're mostly there as a way to keep people at bay. TPA finds Blade, Flexo, and now Cadence find their own. Cadence finds a second, popping Boomski and TPA in the process. It's just Momo left standing. They'll need to increase their margin by a drastic amount, but Flexo is there to make sure there's no chance of it. Syntax saying we're not out of it just yet. Keep watching and we may just show you guys something spectacular.
And there we go. Almost closer to that 2-round deficit. It's still a margin that we need to see Syntax bring back, but we talked about the efficiency of the round for Syntax. It was exactly that. Everything that they did in that round was textbook. It was clean. They deal with the ADSs. They push into the white hallway. Why did they do that? It's a fatal funnel. It's usually death for every single attacker that steps foot there, but they did a wonderful job of droning. Somebody was on cams watching that white stairs, which allowed hacks to push into wood, take the gunfight on the Illuminati without wasting any explosive device. And that's the critical thing, right? Yotsuba had already prepared the deployable shield to be lost through an explosive device, but since Syntax was pushing in from behind, they didn't need to waste utility. They took upstairs with so much time on their hands. When they relocate to the second floor, I mean, Valkyrie was just unprepared to deal with anything that came on forward. Even with great Valkyrie camera coverage throughout that round, Valkyrie just did not have that impact. And Reading Room, in professional play, like you mentioned earlier, Scott, has just not been a bomb site that rosters has looked particularly comfortable on. And here in amateur play, Valkyrie's going to fall into that exact same pitfall. Now electing to bring what they consider their secondary bomb site back upstairs into Bar Cocktail. It's the bombs that they excelled on because of all the steps that they forced Syntax to deal with, plus with this expansion downstairs into Reading Room, very similar to how Team Mystic has been playing Cafe.
Yeah, I think that's a really good analysis. I mean, obviously, Reading Room's an objective that's tertiary for a reason, right? It's an iffy site all around. I mean, some teams can really defend it, some teams really can't, and statistically speaking, it's just all around iffy. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Yike, big sheesh moment right there. I know you don't get these. I usually do them with John, who's about 15 years your junior at this point in time. So I know these may go over your head, but I think a lot of them do because you're, using a walker and have to walk really slow. So Syntax now have to make a full comeback. They made the one. They can pull off the trifecta. We tried to see that last match against Overture and Alter, but it just was not able to happen for Overture, so maybe Syntax will be the team that can do it. Maybe they get one more and we actually see it be a 3-round margin and not that 2-round margin that we're expecting, or it could just be the full 3 that could make it more difficult for them. First shot. Second shot goes to Flexo as they twist, and Illuminati out for the count. Boomski's attempting to hold his pixel still. Drone's being shot off from Momo behind bar back store. Syntax are looking very hot right now as they managed to find 2 picks, or should I say Flexo's managed to find 2 picks, but they can't rely on Flexo for the rest of this game. One player can't backpack everything to a victory, especially at this level.
I was about to say, Flexo's pushing up the brown stairs with no information. It's impossible for him to find a kill here. He's going to get slaughtered. Valkyrie has to be prepared for it. Why? Because there's a Maestro camera watching the brown stairs. But Flexo proves the haters wrong. An incredible 2 kills from him. I don't know what Valkyrie was looking at, but they weren't looking at the primary threat. Boomski forced to fall away after a frag grenade lands at his feet, but doesn't quite have the damage as desirable. He's still up in this fight. He returns an explosive device of his own, a nitro cell now landing at blade speed, but no damage actually being dealt out. Syntax starting to lose a little bit of damage on this push on forward. That Mossberg shotgun could dish out a ton of damage from Boomski if he's in the right place to do so. Momo, on the other hand, is going to be forced in an aggressive scenario as well, pushing deeper into U-Bar, trying to help Boomski as long as possible.
Yeah, and take a look at Syntax HP right now. Every single one of them has taken a massive amount of damage except for Blade. Those toxic babes have dealt their damage. The Nitro is being tossed as well. Boomski just has to tag with barely even half of the pellets to get the job done. TPA does finds Hex, but Flexo finds one before being felled immediately after by Momo. Yotsuba finds Momo in the end, and Blade comes in to clean off the last player in Washroom. What started off as an absolute Syntax slaughter got a little close as Syntax HP was being systematically lowered. Pool by pool, bit by bit, floorboard by floorboard, if you want to go by the full SpongeBob meme right there. But Valkyrie unable to hold off in the end. Syntax just pushes from two different angles, and that just catches him off guard.
Well, Scott, we've guaranteed that week number 1 statistic will still be there. Every match will be within 2 rounds. Oh, except one. You're right. There was a match earlier that wasn't within 1. That's correct. But still, what a stat line. And what does that show for our rosters competing here in Unified Premier? That they're all pretty equal. This series, this season is going to be incredible because at this rate, I have no idea who's going to be the team that's going to be, the champion crowned in 9 weeks. Because everybody looks good. Everybody has done their homework. Everybody's done their prep. And so far, I've been impressed by every roster that we've seen play so far here in week number 1. Valkyrie's defenses have looked strong, but Syntax, they've addressed the issues. We mentioned that Syntax was just playing so aggressive earlier. It was almost to the point of being like brain dead aggressive. Now, they've turned the jets down. They've backed the throttle off just a little bit, and the way Syntax is playing, it's methodical yet aggressive. It's not to that like brain dead hyper aggressive where Flexo is just seeking every single available door frame. There's still elements of that, but Flexo is taking gunfights and winning them, making them look easy. His comrades in crime are doing the exact same thing. And Valkyrie, if I was a player on their team, I'd be concerned because you have to find a way of shutting the man down with 13 kills.
Yeah, I mean, at this point in time, Syntax, they can complete the trifecta. I've been saying the last 2 because it's been adding up. Things have been connecting. Valkyrie haven't been able to finish them off, and it's kind of like a Hydra. You cut off a few more heads, and apparently they just keep growing back and double the size, and Syntax have, Flexo was getting his head cut off on the defense and was only able to do well on one objective alone. It's been the complete polar opposite for the attack. Putting Flexo on this Sophia and having them be that injury has been spectacular. Not just finding the first 2 picks that guarantee... Oh, no. All right, I'm sorry. I apologize. Syntax fans out there everywhere, I will not open my mouth about an individual player ever again. I apologize. Please don't roast me on Twitter.
I think they don't want you to ever open your mouth again. That's absolutely correct. They want to boot you off the broadcast permanently. And I don't blame them, Scott. I would want to do that as well.
They're not the only ones.
Yeah. All jokes aside, though, what a smart play from Valkyrie. That coordination, it seems like it was just a brain-dead spawn peek, but that was a bait and switch. We saw K downstairs a twist. He baited the gunfight from Flexo and the swing from above from Bonesky. That's exactly what we need to see a defending roster do. Coordinate and play together. Now Boomski can hear somebody on the upside down repel. He could take the gunfight, but that'd be too hyper-aggressive for him. So he's just going to relocate himself over by Ticket Booth. A Nutshell goes out and lands at Hex's feet, but he's going to still survive to take another gunfight. Gives away Boomski's position. Now Boomski's going to have to stand his ground, take gunfights. He gets Cycle Mossberg Shotgun, goes CQC. He won't even need to do that, as the SMG-11 is perfect in that position. Yotsuba forced to go for the trade. He'll be able to do that pretty flawlessly. But Syntax, only 2 of their teammates left, and sub 60 seconds. Scott, it's starting to look like this will be the final round.
Yeah, TPA is just putting another nail in the coffin. Yotsuba out, and TPA finds the last. Not just puts the nail in, but drills it home. I know those are completely different tools, but we'll go with it nonetheless. Valkyrie, despite a very close comeback once again from Syntax, like we saw in the Overture Alter game, it doesn't matter. The team that takes that lead, they will be able to hold onto it, and Valkyrie will finish it off in a pretty dominant fashion. That last round did not look like the rounds prior where Syntax was just absolutely slapping them sideways.
We were talking about how Valkyrie would be the dominant force entering into this series. They had so much experience, Challenger League champion experience. And for Syntex to go 7-5 all the way up to round 12, I mean, incredible performance for them. And sure, we highlighted some of their mistakes, and there were mistakes from both sides. Syntex just had a little bit more glaring issues. But Scott, those are things that they can change. Those are things that they can rectify in future playdays because we saw them already make those corrections in the last few rounds because it wasn't hero plays like our first map of the day. It was just smart teamwork from Synthetic because they are playing together. That's going to be a roster that needs to be feared in the remaining 6 play weeks.
Yeah, the fact is, Valkyrie's good. I mean, that's just it. And the fact that Syntax was able to keep into it. Yes, Flexo was the player that was keeping them alive, but I don't think that's just because Flexo is the only good player. I think it's just that Valkyrie was putting a lot of those players into the dirt because it's just they had no experience facing off against them. It's a level of play. Like you said, that CL experience. They have that little bit of higher level experience. They've got a great set of utility across the board. You guarantee that CL player is giving them some strats and some ideas and constantly overlooking his teammates and helping to assist. It's going to be such a difficult match for Syntax. They took the short of the stick facing him here in week 1, and they're going to have their money cut out for them going forward. I think Syntax is going to be a force you have to worry about. They showed a really good job here. Flexo specifically really showed up. It wasn't just on the attack. The defense on third floor was spectacular. Everywhere else was now more of a utility user, but man, when Flexo popped off, Flexo was spectacular, and that was a clip-worthy moment across the board.
Sadly, though, Scott, week number 1 is now over. But if you love Unified Premier, there are still more series taking place today, and not in the Rainbow Six Siege side, but it's going to be League of Legends as soon as this broadcast ends. And if you want to see more Siege, it'll be coming back at you on Monday, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Make sure you tune in for more lovely games. But until next time, stay safe, and we'll be back with you on Monday.